When it comes to companies in the entertainment sphere pushing DEI, there's usually one of two reasons why they're doing it. The number one reason is pretty obvious, and that they're true believers in the cause. And even if it is detrimental to them as a company, they're still going to go down that path because that's what they truly believe in. And they just think the product that they're releasing into the world is a platform in order to try to spread their message. A recent example of that is with Ubisoft, where they've said that, yeah, maybe pushing DEI in our games has been a contributing factor as to why our recent releases have been failing. But they've also come out recently and said that they believe in pushing that message, so they're going to continue with it, even if it is detrimental to them as a company. Not really a smart move. And for people who are holding out hope that maybe Ubisoft will change course, you're not going to really get that with the current leadership. And even if the company does go private, that current leadership is still going to be there. So it's going to be more of the same. There are other companies, on the other hand, though, that aren't necessarily as ideologically motivated. They might believe this stuff on a personal level, but when push comes to shove, they'll prefer making money before they do pushing their message. In fact, a lot of the times they don't even actually care about the message as much. They just view these various demographics as an untapped resource for them, where if they pander to those groups, then they can make more money by bringing them into the fold. However, they're starting to learn that a lot of the times when they try to pander to these various groups, that a lot of their existing customer base will start abandoning them, and they don't actually make it up by pandering to these small minority of groups. So they're thinking like, okay, if we can make more money by going back to how things were doing, then we'll go back to that because we really don't actually care about these various groups out there. And that's kind of where we're getting to the subject of today's video, coming from that Park Place. Asmodee Czech Republic vows to remove pronouns from Czech version of Mass Effect, the board game. And I'm not necessarily saying with 100% certainty that they're doing this for an ideological reasons, or the Czech Republic wants them to remove the pronouns for ideological reasons. I think there's other factors in play here, but I do think it is kind of interesting what's going back and forth between the Czech Republic and with the publisher of this board game. Michael Ecker, a board games brand manager for Asmodee Czech Republic, vowed to remove pronouns from the Czech version of Mass Effect, the board, priority Hagalaz. The game became infamous back in October when the game's creator Eric Lang described players as effing man babies and accused them of trying to tank the game review score on Board Game Geek because they can't handle looking at pronouns on a character sheet. And here's the image that was getting shared around on social media, and you can see it says Commander Shepard, he, him, Liara, she, they. Don't know why they made Liara multiple people or they in this situation. I know she's kind of a little different because she comes from a species that are all female and they can reproduce with male or females from other species. But still, I think they were just looking for an excuse to have someone else in there who wasn't basically normal. And also, they could say male or female if they really wanted to. And I think most people wouldn't have an issue if they put that in the character sheets. The reason specifically why they're doing the pronoun whole things, because that's how you virtue signal to that crowd that, hey, we're one of you, by actually doing the pronouns, as opposed to just having, say, male or female. And people who are making this kind of stuff don't like being called out on it because it's pretty obvious what they're doing. While Lang has since deleted the post, he did write another one claiming he stands by his attacks on gamers. He wrote, deleted the stupid post because, well, you know, I hate deleting posts that I stand behind, but F it, Twitter sucks so effing much. So I think basically what happened is he was getting ratioed in the comments and in the quote tweets on that, and he couldn't stand the heat, so he decided to delete that, but still stands by his message. So he wants to make it clear. He's like, I'm not deleting it because I don't agree with that message. I'm deleting it because I don't like the heat. This is still insidious, but it's probably not going to get the same attention. So he's like, okay, fine, I can handle this. So I can handle the backlash from this one right here, but I'll just get rid of the old one. While he deleted the post on X, he did not delete one on Blue Sky expressing the same sentiment. He wrote, I'm so proud of Mass Effect and so endlessly tired of the effing man babies who try and tank our BGG ratings because we took 10 seconds to add pronouns to the squad mates. And I never understood this argument right there where they say like, oh, it's just pronouns. It's not a big deal. It's like, okay, well, if it's not a big deal, clearly there's people out there who don't like you including them into it. So why not get rid of them? Just say male or female, or do not have any inclusion of that at all. Just let the way that people look at them to say like, okay, obviously that's a male character. Obviously that's a female character. You don't need to do any more than that, but they say like, oh, it's just pronouns. It's not a big deal, but they get so mad when people are calling them out for using pronouns. I think why they get so mad is because they know it's a big deal. And like I was saying, it's the way that they can virtue signal. I'm going to say it's a dog whistle. I think that's kind of a stupid expression because a dog whistle means only one group of people actually understand what that means. Everyone understands what it means when they're including pronouns into this sort of thing, but yet they still insist on doing it and then get all upset and go crazy like this when you say, hey, can you maybe not do this? Like, well, what's the big deal about it? It's just pronouns. Why are you getting so agitated? It's like, okay, clearly you think it's a big deal and you're upset that people are calling you out on this one. And that's why you're getting this angry. But the funny thing about it is he was talking about their review score on BGG where he was saying like, oh, look, we only had 10 reviews and then like 10 1 reviews. So they were saying it's pretty positive on there. At least it was leaning more positive. But then after his post, in a subsequent post, he revealed that following his comments attacking gamers and making people aware of the game, the 1-star reviews had increased from 10 to 52. He wrote, "This is what you get for letting your guard down for 1 second and speaking in anger. F me, I'm just tired." And this guy has to be a complete retard if he didn't understand that this was going to happen, because at this point right here, yeah, there are some 1-star ones, but it was mostly positive. And then he makes a post saying like, oh, the man babies are upset and they're going to give us negative reviews on this site right here because of the pronouns and stuff in it. And it's like, okay, were you trying to actually get this reaction to it? Because this is the internet. You should probably know that this was going to be the response to your attacks on gamers. If you start saying like, hey, don't go to this site and give us a bad review because you're just a man baby upset about pronouns being included in this Mass Effect game and you're all retards and we hate you and other things like that. Like, okay, you probably had to understand that this was going to happen, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I wasn't aware of that, but since this company sucks, yeah, I will go there and give it a 1-star review as a result of all of this. Notice the 10 stars also increased, so you're still going to get the love bombs as well as the review bombs, but still, it just goes to show, when I've said this in the past, when it comes to review bombing, it usually happens both ways. And if the reaction or the final outcome is overwhelmingly negative, that means the public sentiment is overwhelmingly negative towards your product. And you should start to reconsider, maybe you shouldn't pander to this demographic who actually likes that sort of thing, because clearly they're not the ones that are actually paying your bills. In a recent post on the game store page on the Czech website, Zatorlin Hari Eckert declared, as translated via DeepL, well, we think it's absolutely not unnecessary to mention it, so there won't be any pronouns on the Czech version of the character cards, or we won't put them there, and we'll argue with the publisher that we don't want them there. They don't make any sense at all. So it's just a matter of whether the publishing company behind the Mass Effect board game will comply with the Czech Republic and remove them in order to try to sell it there, or whether they're going to actually stand by their convictions and be like, no, if you don't want to put the pronouns in there, then we're not going to sell them, or then we're not going to sell our product there. We'd rather make no money than to remove them. But we've seen stuff like this in the past with other pieces of entertainment. A good example is for the Sony Spider-Man game, came out last year, where in the American release, or in a lot of actually pretty much the international release of the game, they had all the different flags and stuff like that displayed. They had gay dialogue options, or dialogue between characters and other things like that included in the game. And they decided to remove that kind of stuff in the Middle Eastern release of the game, and decided just to have, like, instead of the different pride flags, they just have American flags, because, you know, that kind of makes sense. The game is set within America, so maybe the Middle Eastern people think like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense where America just has a ton of flags of their, or a ton of US flags in there. But still, I mean, that's kind of a neutral way. And a funny thing about that is there was mods that were banned as a result of basically using the Middle Eastern release of the game, but just having the English dialogue in it as opposed to the Arabic dialogue in it. So it's just kind of funny that that's what happened with it. But still, that's kind of a side thing entirely. So we've seen like some bigger companies like Sony were like, oh yeah, we'll pander to these groups if we think we can make money off it, or that's just kind of the thing to do nowadays. But if it comes to actually making money, then yeah, that's what we care about first and foremost. So we're happy to edit our product for the release of the game. We'll see what happens with Mass Effect board game, if they're actually going to edit that out for the Czech release, or if they're going to stand by their convictions. But like I was saying before, I don't necessarily think it's because of ideological reasons, or it might not be because of ideological reasons why in the Czech Republic they want to remove pronouns, because you have to understand in the language of Czech is actually a gendered language. They have male and female connotations to how they speak. So the whole non-binary thing, she, they, stuff like that, it really doesn't work within their language. It just sounds funny, or it's just kind of weird the way things work. I don't speak Czech, so I'm not 100% in tune with how their language works. I speak a little Spanish, and I'm more familiar with that because that's also a gendered language. So I kind of understand a little bit about how this works. If you speak multiple languages, especially one that's a gendered language, and you'll probably know that it's not so easy just to include the different pronouns or the she, they sort of thing in the dialogue, or not dialogue because it's a board game, but you get what I'm saying. It's just not the exact same thing. So that's maybe why they're wanting to actually remove it, because it just creates confusion within the final product. Or maybe there is an ideological reason why they want to remove it, because they don't want to try to push that agenda there, or they just don't think it'll sell as well over in the Czech Republic. So they want to get rid of it as a result of that in order to try to make sure it's maximize the profits when it sells over there. We don't necessarily know, and I guess we'll have to wait and see whether it actually does remove the pronouns in the Czech release of it, or whether they'll continue on with it. But one thing is for sure, there's a lot of people within the entertainment sphere, particularly like this dude here, even though it's not necessarily his big thing, but board games are still prominent within pop culture, who are trying to push a message. And even if he's the one developing it and he wants to push the message, if the company that he's working for doesn't want to push it, or like I'm talking the overall publishing company or the distributors don't want to push it, then he's going to be out of luck. And eventually we'll just have to wait and see what happens, whether people like this win out or whether reason will prevail. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.